a piety system in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. I actually only recently learned about it myself when I was doing a review and covering the news for the new Theros campaign. It does exist. It's been out since the DMG came out. If you want to see what it is, stay tuned. Hello everyone, my name is Ted, this is Nerd Immersion. Let's talk Piety. And when I say let's talk Piety, what I really mean is let's talk Renown, because that's actually how it's designed in the DMG. There is a little known, barely used, and I think completely thrown to the side system in 5th edition known as Renown. I really like the concept of this. It's the idea of building sort of a reputation within a faction, and I think it definitely has a place in 5th edition, and it can be used well, but unfortunately, I think Wizards has kind of gone away from it. Let's go ahead and take a look. It's in Chapter 1 of the Dungeon Master's Guide, and there's a section under Factions and Organizations, and there's a section known as Renown. So if you go back to the faction organizations, it'll talk about the factions of the Forgotten Realms, right? The Harpers, the Order of the Gauntlet, the Emerald Enclave, the Lord's Alliance, and the Zhentarim. So the thought process behind this was you could join one of these factions, and in doing so, you could get some benefits for being a member of that group, and then you could also build renown within the group that would give you other benefits, right? You could maybe get access to certain resources, certain items, certain different things that you wouldn't have access to were you not a given member of a certain rank within that society. This was most exclusively used in the Adventurers League. When it started, and I think they've kind of gotten away from it in one of the newer seasons, I think season 8, maybe season 7, the concept was anyone could join a faction. And if you did, it could give you benefits, right? So you join a faction, and certain missions in Adventurers League would grant you renown within your faction. Like, every member of every faction gets 1 renown, but if you're a member of the Emerald Enclave, you get 2, or something like that. And over time, when you hit a certain level and a certain, character level and a certain renown level, you could ascend from level 1 to level 2 within the rank, or 5 levels within each faction, and they would all have a different name for each different faction, and they would allow you certain things. In Adventure League play, I think it was I think it was either level 1 or level 2, maybe it was even level 3, you could buy certain magic items that were only available to your faction. Like, all factions could buy +1 weapons, I think +1 shields, and at a later level +1 armor. But if you were an Emerald Enclave, one of the items available to you was a ring of animal influence, whereas for Zhentarim, it might have been a ring of evasion. I think that's right, but I might be making that up. But anyway, it was something like that. And if you wanted to train in a faction-based skill or tool or language or something, it would take you less time if you were a member. There was a certain list for each faction. It would take less time if you were a member of that faction because you had the resources to allow you to do that. And then eventually you could take on mentors or apprentices. You could become a mentor as you got higher up. And that would be a benefit. If you, as the mentor, were in a party with your apprentice, you could give certain benefits to one another. It was a really cool concept, and I really liked it. And basically, they just did away with that entirely. Unless you took a specific background, then you could have access to faction benefits. Otherwise, basically, they just did away with it entirely. So let's talk about the concept here. Sorry, that was my little rant about Adventures League, but I thought it was important to get an idea of where it was going. So it's an optional rule used to track an adventurer's standing within a particular faction or organization. Renown is a numerical value that starts at 0 and then increases as a character earns favor and reputation with a particular organization. You can tie benefits to a character's renown, including ranks and titles within the organization and access to resources. Player tracks renown separately for each organization his or her character is a member of. For example, an adventurer might have 5 renown with one faction and 20 with another, based on the character's interaction with each organization over the course of the campaign. So that's, again, a really cool concept. Something you could 100% stick into your own campaign relatively easily. I do have a kind of a faction that my players in my homebrew campaign are a part of. I have a separate set of rules for it, but as the faction builds renown and they grow within that faction, they sort of started it, so it's a little bit different, but you get the point. Again, in Adventurers League, you could only be the member of one faction at a time, but there's no reason in your own campaign they couldn't be a member of, like, someone could be a member of the Thieves Guild or a member of the Royal group and the Nature group, or however you want to base it around, that you could gain levels within each group as you kind of play and do different missions for them. How do you gain renown? A character earns renown by completing missions or quests that serve an organization's interests or involve the organization directly. You award renown at your discretion as characters complete these missions or quests, typically at the same time you award experience points. Advancing an organization's interests increases a character's renown within that organization by 1. Completing a mission specifically assigned to that organization or which directly benefits the organization increases the character's renown by 2 instead, like I referenced before. For example, characters with connections to the Noble Order of the Gauntlet complete a mission in which they free a town from the tyranny of a blue dragon. Because the Order likes to punish evildoers, you might increase each character's renown within the Order by 1. Conversely, if killing the dragon was a mission given to the adventurers by a senior member of the Order, completing the task might increase their renown by 2, showing the adventurers as effective allies. Meanwhile, the party's rogue might have looted a box of rare poisons from the dragon's hoard and sold it to a fence who is secretly a Zentarum agent. You might increase the rogue's renown with the Zentarum by 2, since this action directly increased the group's power and wealth, even though the task was not assigned by an agent of the Zentarum. So there's an idea of how you can have multiple ones. And here's some examples of the ranks, right? It shows you 1, 3, 10, 25, and 50, the different ranks as you go along within a given faction. And then you can see the 5 factions of the Forgotten Realms that I was telling you about, right? Each one has a different title associated with it. And I like these. They're pretty cool. I'm a personal fan of the Emerald Enclave, right? Spring Warden, Summer Strider, Autumn Reaver, Winter Stalker, and then Master of the Wild. I think it sounds the coolest, but I do think the Harpers have some good ones as well. Zentaurums are okay too. I think the Lord's Alliance ones kind of suck, personally. But anyway, what are the benefits of getting renown? That's what we were kind of talking about here, right? Benefits of increasing renown with an organization can include a rank and authority, friendly attitudes from the members of the organization, and other perks. Characters earn promotions as their rank increases. They establish certain thresholds of renown that serve as prerequisites, though not necessarily the only prerequisites, for advancing in rank, as shown in the examples of the rank tables above. For example, after earning 1 renown, they gain the title of Cloak. The character's renown with the Lord's Alliance. The character's renown with the organization increases, he or she might be eligible for further increases in rank. You can add rank prerequisites. For example, a character affiliated with the Lord's Alliance might have to be at least level 5 before becoming a Sting Blade, at least level 10 to be a Warp Duke, and at least level 15 to be a Lion Crown as you're leveling up there. You can set these thresholds of renown to any numbers that work for your game, certain appropriate ranks and titles, or creating appropriate ranks and titles for organizations in your campaign. All right, so there's that. Attitudes of organization members. As a character's renown within an organization grows, members of that organization are increasingly likely to have heard of you. You can set thresholds at which default attitude towards a member becomes indifferent or friendly. For example, members of the Emerald Enclave, a faction dedicated to preserving the natural order, might be less friendly towards characters who have not cultivated at least 3 renown within the organization, becoming friendly by default when they've gained 10 renown within the Emerald Enclave. When thresholds apply only to different attitudes of most members of an organization, and such attitudes aren't automatic. NPC faction members might dislike an adventurer despite their renown, or perhaps because of it. And then what kind of perks can you assign? Earning a rank within an organization comes with certain benefits as defined by you, the DM. Character of low rank might gain access to a reliable contact and adventure leads, a safe house, or a trader willing to offer discounts on adventuring gear. Typically, for all of those, when you got rank 1, you got some sort of symbol that tied you to it, whether it was a pin, a cloak clasp, something like that, which is a good way to indoctrinate someone in. Hey, look, here's my ring that shows I'm a member of the Harpers, or whatever it is. A middle-ranked character might gain a follower. Again, we talked a little bit about followers in my video about NPC attitude. Access to potions and scrolls, the ability to call in a favor or back up on dangerous missions. A high-ranking character might be able to call in a small army, take custody of a rare magic item, gain access to a helpful spellcaster, or assign special missions to members of lower rank. Useful stuff. Downtime activities, you might allow characters to spend downtime between adventures building relationships and gaining renown within an organization. And then it gives you a section to what downtime activities are. How do you lose renown? Disagreements with members of an organization aren't enough to cause a loss of renown within that organization. However, serious offenses committed against the organization or its members can result in a loss of renown and rank within the organization. The extent of the loss depends on the infraction and is left to your discretion. A character's renown with an organization can never drop below 0. So the reason that I went through renown like that is probably the reason you clicked on this video, and that is to deal with piety. It says, with a few alterations, the renown system can serve as a measure of a character's link to the gods. It is a great option for the characters where gods take active roles in the world. So depending on the world, depending on if you have divine people in your party, let's keep reading. Using this approach, you track renown based on specific divine figures in your campaign. Each character has the option to select a patron deity or pantheon with goals, doctrine, and taboos that you have created. Any renown he or she earns is called piety. A character gains piety for honoring his or her gods, fulfilling their commands, and respecting their taboos. The character loses piety for working against those gods, dishonoring them, defiling their temples, and foiling their aims. The gods bestow favor on those who prove their devotion. With each rank of piety gained, a character can pray for divine favor once a day. This favor usually comes in the form of a cleric spell like Bless. The favor comes with a sign of the divine benefactor. For example, a character dedicated to Thor might receive a spell accompanied by a boom of thunder. A high level of piety can also lead to a character gaining a more persistent benefit in the form of a blessing or charm. See Chapter 7 for blessings and supernatural gifts. And that is it. So, I couldn't really explain to you piety without going through renown because one is tied to the other. But the reason that this is a topical video now is it's specifically stated in the Dragon Plus article that the way the gods are going to interact with the players in the new Mystical Odysseys of Theros campaign world is going to be using this piety system from the Dungeon Master's Guide. So let me know what you guys think. Did you know about this? There's usually not a lot of hidden stuff in the early chapters in the Dungeon Master's Guide because people typically start reading there and then skip ahead to magic items and don't pay attention to anything else in between. That being said, this is a pretty useful one, and I actually forgot about piety as a way to use it, renown. I've used renown in games before. I actually have a very devout, pious character in one of my campaigns, and I'm going to use this now. I'm going to go back and sit down and say, hey, what are things that happened that this character did well and in tie with the gods that he worships, and then use those to develop what his piety score is and come up with what the different ranks are and possibly grant him benefits as such. Let me know what you all think in the comments down below. If you like this kind of video and other things like top 10s and reviews and whatnot, that's what this channel is really all about. So if you haven't taken a moment to subscribe to the channel, I would really appreciate it if you could click that little thumbs up button down there for liking the video, subscribe, and if you want to see more videos like this in your feed, ring that notification bell as well. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.